Welcome, everyone, to Space Coast Progressive Alliance. My name is Daniel McDowell, and I'll be sitting in tonight for Phil Spacek. Phil has had a family emergency, so our hearts and minds are with Phil and his family tonight. Tonight, we have a program on human trafficking, and thank you for all being here tonight. And before I get into introducing the panelists, I'd like to introduce our president, Raed Al-Shabi. Raed?
Thank you, Danielle, and for covering for our Phil, and we wish him and his family the best tonight. And I just want to welcome everyone to our October monthly event at Space Coast Progressive Alliance. This is a well-deserved topic. We've been waiting too long to put it on, and I'm glad our APC were able to find the time to find the specialists and well-known speakers on this subject. So I want to welcome them, and I want to thank them for taking the time. Human trafficking is, for me, is another global pandemic that we've ignored for a long time. We didn't ignore, but I think we need a lot more knowledge in it. And this is a great opportunity for us. We have a lot of following on Space Coast Progressive Alliance Facebook account that will be watching. We have people that are watching on right now through Zoom. So we do want them to hang on and just till the end of the program and ask questions and get more feedback from the speakers. Before we start, I want to thank our Action Project Committee who put this program on, and Danielle, you did a great job, and we appreciate you and the rest of the APC group. Bonnie, Ida, they help out a lot. Ellen, we have also Vicky and Boko, Janice Moran put the graphics. We have a lot of people who work hard, and we continue to produce these programs on a monthly basis. So here I want to thank our membership, and I also want to thank the audience and ask them if they want to join us, if they want to help out. We would love to have more volunteers join this great organization. We can use some help. And also want to thank you for their membership. If you want to join us, we would love to earn your membership. It's $25 a year. It's symbolic, but it just gives us a way to connect with a lot of people. You can join us by visiting us on our website, which is www.scpaflorida.com. And as Danielle said earlier, whenever we have speakers, we look for their action at the end of the program. This is our way to just learn and also deliver some action at the end. So hopefully we can get some action plan from our speakers at the end of the night. Just want to remind also everyone that our next event is on November 4th. And we have a great topic. I'll put the word out right now. It's called Beyond the Pretty Picture, When Art is Political. And I can't wait to listen to that one, and hope you can join us as well. Without further ado, please, I'll send it back to Danielle, and hope we can enjoy a great program with the speakers.
Thank you, Raed. And welcome everyone again to the Space Coast Progressive Alliance First Thursday educational program on human trafficking. It's all around us. Tonight, you're being joined by 4 experts to discuss their work with victims. They'll include law enforcement, social work, mental health, and community education. For those of you that are new to our format, how we proceed is we will allow each of our panelists to present, and then afterwards we'll have time for Q&A. You are all currently on mute, and then when we get to the Q&A portion, we'll be able to remove that and also allow you, I think currently you can do chat to the host at this point, but we'll open up the chat room so you can talk to one another. But we really appreciate you being here tonight. And I'll go ahead and say that we're going to go ahead and have the sequence of panelists will be Nathan Earl will be first, with who is a principal with Giant Slayer Communications. And then that'll be followed by Melissa Krieger with the Department of Children Services, and Andrina Harriman from Devereaux, Florida. And then we'll be wrapping up tonight with the Special Victims Unit, Neil Lee, who's going to sit in tonight for Sergeant Stoll. And before we give you the full introduction of Nathan, I will tell you that we do have, Nathan is also has an obligation tonight, so he'll be leaving a little early. So we're going to veer off our typical format and allow for some Q&A with Nathan before he departs. At least give an opportunity to this audience. And if we don't answer, we can always put it in the chat room and get back to him. And I believe Nathan is going to put his contact information out there as well. With that said, is there anything else from the Progressive Alliance that I need to mention? Otherwise, let me introduce Nathan. He's the principal of the Giant Slayer Communications. He building resilient communities to prevent violence against boys and men, including human trafficking and exploitation. He's with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He's also a fellow with the 2019 fellow with the Department of Human and Health Services. And Nathan, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks so much, Daniel, and thanks so much for the community for being here tonight. As you'll hear from me and the other panelists, we're here to talk about human trafficking. Human trafficking involves the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purposes of sexual labor or sexual services. But more or equally important, it's a global pandemic of violence. It's a global pandemic of violence that has a very local and pronounced footprint. Florida consistently ranks as the third highest for reported cases to the human trafficking hotline. Human trafficking affects individuals across the lifespan, across the gender spectrum, and from any socioeconomic status. My specialty has traditionally been, aside from someone with lived experiences with human trafficking, I started about 8 years ago working front lines with street outreach, really looking to serve historically underserved survivors and victims of human trafficking. And primarily that's evolved into boys and men. So the U.S. Our Office on Trafficking in Persons has identified several higher risk populations, higher risk based on social determinants of negative health, lack of access to resources, and boys and men have been identified as one of those special risk populations. So I'd like to use my time to kind of walk you through some information on the typology. So how are we seeing human trafficking show up as it affects boys and men in our communities? What are some of the risk factors? And then more importantly, how can you as a community get involved? My goal is to speak to you today to serve as a wedge of consciousness, that the information that you hear today will, you'll take action on that and go into the community. So the first thing I always like to share is just kind of address one of the common misconceptions with the trafficking of boys. In traditional conversations in the community, when we talk about the trafficking of a boy, it's automatically assumed it's the sex trafficking of a boy. And that that LGBTQ has something to do with their victimization. So we know, and that research also supports, that only about half of the boys that we've identified as survivors of human trafficking will identify along the LGBTQ spectrum. And that's really important when you're developing outreach strategies, when you're developing community engagement strategies, and referral strategies. We definitely need to build linkages with LGBTQ serving providers, but we also need to build linkages with providers in the community that serve male youth in general. So first thing, we know that in general, I guess labor trafficking is reported to occur far more than sex trafficking. Labor trafficking is harder to prove. So we have more arrests and more convictions around sex trafficking. But just as a point of information, labor trafficking or labor exploitation is assumed to occur much more often than sex trafficking. Specific to boys, we have several national research publications that support the fact that as many as half of all child sex trafficking victims can identify as a boy or male identifying. Interpol and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released some research at the beginning of this past year that also supports the significant prevalence of male victimization. Their research showed that boys and very young children actually are the victims of the most severe online exploitation. So again, we mentioned that it's the use of force, fraud, and coercion. There are several means of action that takes place. How is it showing up for our boys? And so one of the forms is commercial child sexual exploitation, and this can be any commercial transaction, sexual transaction with a minor. We don't need a third-party buyer. We see families trafficking their children. So many times we'll see family members, parents, caregivers, aunties, uncles, who are substance dependent and who, out of desperation, end up trading or selling their children, their boys, for drugs or for money. There's drug-facilitated trafficking. So we know that one of the vulnerabilities or the root causes of trafficking are adverse child experiences that many of our boys experience in the home. As a result, many of our boys turn to drugs to either blot out the trauma. Sometimes traffickers lure and forcefully induce or force the kids to induce drugs as a means of control. And so once that addiction takes place or that substance dependency takes place, the traffickers will then use the fear of withdrawal to continually keep those boys into exploitation. Youth experiencing homelessness, and specifically LGBTQ youth who are disproportionately represented among our homeless youth population, experience some additional vulnerabilities. Many times, even in 2021, kids are thrown out to the streets or abandoned because of their sexual orientation. Once on the streets without stable supports, predators and traffickers will approach them. They will begin the grooming process, be that love and that support, provide services, and then slowly lure them into exploitation. And then for boys in particular, we know that online exploitation is the more prevalent form, just from what the research tells us, and it can be apps, dating apps, or different websites. Risk factors for exploitation. One of the things you'll find out tonight, hopefully, is that vulnerabilities, there are commonalities and vulnerability across the gender spectrum for exploitation. Specific to boys, there are some additional. There's a shame and stigma around being victimized. Many of these boys do not disclose that they've been victimized because they think people are going to think they're gay, they're sissy, they're weak. And that's part of the toxic masculinity or the toxic norms around masculinity in the United States. So that fear of being outed or that fear of being less than a man is a coercive mechanism. Many of our boys in today's society, again, as opposed to others across the gender spectrum, boys are taught to stuff their emotions down. Boys are not allowed to express emotions by and large. And how we see that showing up is they stuff down the trauma, and then that manifests with substance dependency, acting out, criminal justice involvement. And so all of these things taken together, this cumulative risk factor can lead to later exploitation. So again, that's a very high level view, and hopefully the content from my colleagues will kind of provide a holistic overview of some of the risk factors. What are some of the I guess under-identified risks or youth that are at risk of human trafficking? I guess what I'd like to leave you with then is what can you do in the community aside from continuing to learn? And there are a few things. So if there are parents on the call, parents need to hear, your kids need to hear from you that there is nothing that they can tell you that will change your view of them. We find out so many times that boys are so scared to tell their mom or their dad because they're afraid of what their parents are going to think of them. Dads, your son needs to hear from you directly that there's nothing that can happen to him that will ever change your love for him. And there's a specific a bond between a father and a son that's been really helpful. Human trafficking prevention education is now mandated in all schools across the state. What you need to do, or what you can do as a community member, is to advocate for gender inclusive prevention education. Until recently, the prevention education that was being implemented was many times female-centric. There are evidence-based gender inclusive prevention education curricula that are available and that you can advocate for to be included within your school system. And then finally, community advocacy. So if you're like most, Many of you have probably not heard of the trafficking of boys, or not as much as the trafficking of others. Now that you know, you have an opportunity to challenge some of those messages that you're hearing in the community about what human trafficking is. Human trafficking does include the sex trafficking of a female. It's so much more than that. It also includes the sex trafficking of boys and non-binary, as well as labor trafficking. So as you're engaging your community and participating in your local coalition, bring this to the table, have these conversations, and challenge those who are either don't have that information yet, or are purposefully or for some other reason continuing with that false narrative. So I'm going to stop it short there because I do have to leave, and I want to give everyone an opportunity to ask any questions. My email is in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have now or that you may have later. A part of what I do is assist communities and organizations in building their capacity to respond to the trafficking of boys and men. So whether it's a question or another speaking opportunity, I'm always happy to answer those questions. Daniel?
Well, thank you, Nathan. And again, my name is Dan McDowell. If you had just joined us on the program, this is the Space Coast Progressive Alliance, and we are talking about human trafficking tonight. It's all around us. And our first speaker was Nathan Earl, who has another engagement and is going to need to leave us here shortly. And we would like to veer off our regular plan and answer questions. And I see people know how to raise their hand already. So we'll go ahead and start with Red. You have a question?
Yeah, just thank you, Nathan. I want to make sure I give opportunity for everyone. The only question I had, or two questions: why you focus on boys and men in your organization only? And just for our information, you know, in Florida is ranked number 3. Who is number 1 and 2? If you have that.
Sure. So Florida and California usually rank. Florida, California, and Texas are kind of compete against those top 3. And I don't necessarily, I want to be clear about that and transparent. It doesn't necessarily mean Florida has the 3rd highest cases. It has the highest reported cases to the human trafficking hotline. And a big part of that is through the advocacy efforts from anti-trafficking stakeholders and community members. The overwhelming majority of calls to the human trafficking hotline are from community members. So the more that the community is engaged, then our numbers should organically increase. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. Why boys and men? I founded the organization as a male survivor of human trafficking. And at the time, 8 years ago, there were 2 other programs across the United States that were focused on boys and men. When we did our community analysis and our actor mapping, systems mapping, very few programs in the state or across the country focused specifically on boys and men. We found 2 that had dedicated housing for boys and men. In Florida, there's 1 safe home for boys. In the country, I know of two others. So it was really looking at the needs of the community and filling a gap. And when I say we knew the narrative out there was this a female-centric narrative, and it happens a lot, but what we sought to do was fill the gap. And when we looked at from prevention to intervention to restoration, community education and awareness, there was a gap around the trafficking of boys and male identifying individuals. And finally, right, we operated from a gender-based perspective. And so within the male identifying, within subgroups within that had higher vulnerabilities or higher risk factors, and also included Black youth, Latinx, Native American, and GBTQ was one portion or one segment from a gender-based perspective that we serve with the program.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Nathan. We have a couple more individuals. Ellen, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Nathan. That was a lot of new information for me. Very hard to listen to, but very good. I was wondering what the average age is and what the youngest trafficking victim you have seen is.
Sure. And those are hard questions, and I'll frame it with a disclaimer that a lot of the research that we see is skewed, and we know because of the stigma that I just talked about that many of the cases are going to be underreported. So Interpol, the study that I referenced by Interpol, They have infants, male infants being, as early as an infant, being exploited. So there are two other data points that I'll share, and then I want to add some context to that because it's really important. So the Global Data Hub, the Global Data Hub collaboration is a global collaboration, the National Human Trafficking Hotline, International Labor Organization. So global organizations, they collect data. Their research tells us that boys 10 to 12 years old are the most exploited online and via private remote sexual services. So the age will vary according to the research and our experience, depending on the channel for solicitation. With that said, there is really powerful research by Dr. Meredith Dank of the Urban Institute. She conducted a 3-year longitudinal study of LGBTQ youth, young men having sex with men, young women having sex with women on the streets of New York. The age bracket was 15 to 25. And through that study, the common age of entry into the sex trade was between 15 and 18. So I think it's going to depend on the region. It definitely would depend on the researcher and how they collected that data. I think the channel for solicitation matters, but what's really important about that is if you're developing outreach strategies for the community to engage survivors and those at risk, a 12-year-old consumes data differently than a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old. The language is different, the media can be different. And so it's really important to curate your content based on the target and to base that on who you think you're going to be serving. Finally, to your question, Not a Number is an evidence-based prevention education curriculum that is gender inclusive. And so it was as evidence-based, meaning it was designed and tested for 12 to 18-year-old high-risk youth, and they've curated the language to resonate with that age bracket.
Okay,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. We have another question from Joyce Wasserman.
Hi, first, thank you, Nathan. You outlined very well the role that drug abuse plays in the recruitment of boys, but what is the role of poverty or inability of parents to get a decent living wage job play into the recruitment of young men?
Sure, and I think it would probably be the same for all children. Household dysfunction or lack of access and poverty are definitely push-pull factors that are associated with trafficking and exploitation. So if we look at poverty, for an example, in household, from a multicultural perspective, there are communities where it's been normalized out of desperation and poverty to sell or trade their children for money, for a livelihood. So we know that to be the case. Many times from familial trafficking, it doesn't necessarily have to be a substance-dependent parent. It can be out of desperation because of lack of access to a job or poverty, and to buy food, for rent. Then the parents or caregivers will ultimately trade off or sell the boys. What makes this unique with boys is because of our society and the constructs of masculinity. Boys are supposed to be the man of the house. Boys are looked to be taken out of school and to provide an income for many families. And so that's the part of one of the risk factors specific to boys is that feeling of manhood or diminished manhood. It's my job to support my family. And we know that that's been a tactic that traffickers have leveraged. Well, you need to support your family, especially for children, in I guess house or families of origin, but also teen fathers. I guess kind of in alignment with your question, teen fathers. We have quantitative or qualitative anecdotal narratives of teen fathers initially engaging in survival sex to provide food for their child because they either had criminal records or they had other barriers to employment. So the poverty and the lack of access to economic empowerment definitely plays a role in the trafficking of boys and men. Did I answer your question, Joyce? Was that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, Nathan. We're going to, at this point, you're going to be able to stick around for a little bit.
Can I ask one question quick?
Sure. Go ahead.
So just sorry, I want to make sure that Zonta it does the sustainability of your organization and helping these victims. How do you sustain yourself? Do you help the victims? Are you a source of help or just information?
So I provide capacity building consultant. The organization that I founded, Arc of Freedom Alliance, I resigned in February. So now I provide capacity building consulting to male serving providers. I will tell you, we're still listed as a tier 1 referral for the national hotline. So we'll get calls and we can make referrals, but we're not actually providing direct services. We always refer people to the Hero House out of Tampa, which is Florida's only safe home for boys.
Great. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Riad. As Riad mentioned, Zonta was very important in developing our program tonight. So I definitely can't say thank you enough to the folks at Zonta. So we greatly appreciate it. Nathan will be here, and boy, that just makes me think about, families are clueless until it touches them personally. So like so many things in our lives. Thank you. Our next speaker, our panelist, is Melissa Krieger, and she is with the Department of Children and Families. She's an investigator for the Specialized Children's Advocacy Unit, which handles human trafficking investigations for Brevard. Melissa?
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Daniel. I'm so happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me to talk a little bit about human trafficking and the role the department plays in this. I just like to start off first beforehand. I am generally, those who know me, I'm a pretty loud and easily understood person. I had some unexpected dental surgery this week, so I'm going to apologize if some of my words come across a little bit hard to understand. I apologize, and I'll clear up anything in questions or anything, but that was unexpected. So I just wanted to throw that out there before we got started. But again, I've been with the department with DCF for about 15 years. Currently, I work in the Children's Advocacy Unit, and we handle the majority of the human trafficking reports that come in through the hotline here in Brevard County. So I just kind of want to talk a little bit about human trafficking and what we're seeing in Brevard County, what we're responding to, and what we're seeing coming in through the hotline. So the only way you'll get a DCF response is if a call comes in through the hotline for the human trafficking. And we have, it is a pretty broad definition of what qualifies as human trafficking here in Florida. And when it comes to making a human trafficking report or having concerns for human trafficking for kids. And essentially what that definition is that it is any sex act, and a sex act can be very broad. It can be anything from taking photos to dancing to working in a strip club or any variety of actual sex acts. Any of that qualifies as a sex act. And that's in exchange for anything of value. It doesn't necessarily just have to be money. That can be in exchange for excuse me, I apologize again. I'm having some difficulties with talking. And again, anything of value. And we know kids value all kinds of things. So that can be something from money or drugs or food or clothes or getting their nails done or food for their family. Any of those things would qualify as an exchange of something for value. And also with that broad definition, there's not any clause or anything in there that talks to who the alleged perpetrator is. It's not always what we, when we think of human trafficking or we think of those girls that are being smuggled in or being kept locked up. That's generally not what it is. It's everyday kids. It's everyday kids in your neighborhood. They're living in middle-class neighborhoods. They're going to school. They are interacting with their friends, their parents, and this is going on in the homes right under their parents' noses. The traffickers are finding these girls again through social media. We know our world right now is completely ruled by social media. Our kids are out there, they're posting pictures, they're posting videos, they're they've seen on TV this glamorized lifestyle, that the pimp lifestyle, and it's great to do these things, and you're making lots of money and it's glamorized. So they're seeing all these things, so they're not fearing these things. And they're thinking it's a great way that, hey, I can get out there, I can do this too. And that's what we see. We see a lot of here in Brevard County. It is kids that are going out and they're taking pictures of themselves, and then they're posting those pictures online and selling them to people they don't know on the internet. They're just out there, people that are buying them. And in this day of Venmo and Cash App, the money is just transferred to them anonymously, and the kids don't see anything wrong with it. They just say, hey, what's the big deal? I'm taking these pictures anyways. They may be sending them to their boyfriends or to their friends, or they see it as glamorized, and they don't see anything really wrong with it. So they're using it as a way. They're using it as a way that they can get the things that they want that for whatever reason they can't get. Either they're low income, or their families can't buy them, or they're just things that they want. And we see that is what we see a lot of here in Brevard County. And again, going on right underneath the parents' noses. It's easy for them to do and obtain. They can do all of this on their phone, and most parents are not monitoring social media. They're not going into their kids' accounts. They're not looking at their kids' accounts. They're not seeing who they're talking to. And so they have no idea that it's going on. And so again, no idea that it's going on. So when the department comes out, when somebody realizes something's going on, or makes a call to the department and we come out, again, the parents don't, when we come out and say, hey, we're out here to talk to you a little bit about what's going on with your kids, and you say that word human trafficking, again, that image of smuggled girls locked somewhere in a room, being held captive, what comes to their mind? No, my child's not being trafficked. Well, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about your kids' social media and what they're doing and the consequences that come from it, because they don't realize once they put it out there, once it's on the internet, it's out there forever. They can't get rid of it, and it's always going to be there. So these are kind of the things that we need to open parents' awareness of what their kids are doing and the risk to it, because that can be an initial step where the kids are doing it themselves, thinking, oh, it's no big deal posting this, but then that's where a potential trafficker is going to come and find these kids that they have a foot in the door, because the kids have already started with the pictures or the dancing or the photos or those things, and that's their foot in the door to get them to do more and more and more, and for it to progress more and more and more. And that's something that, again, we see. That's really what we're seeing here in Brevard County. And with girls themselves, it's not obviously a lot of the kids, when I go in and talk to them, it's not their first time talking to the department. They've talked to investigators before. They've talked to DCF before. It's really, it's not often that I go out and a kid says, yep, I'm doing it. You caught me. This is what I'm doing. That's not what it is. It is report after report comes out, and I meet the same girls over and over, and their same friends over and over and over again, and just building that rapport with the girls and building the rapport with the kids, because until they realize that they're a victim, nothing's going to change there. They have to, and most of these kids, they don't think they're victims. They think, I'm doing this, it's my choice, I'm doing it, and I'm not a victim, I can stop anytime I want. So until they're ready to accept that and accept that change, all we can do is continue to try to be there for them, to provide any services that they are willing to do, education to the parents, that the parents are vigilant about monitoring their social media and their phones and their pictures and their internet access and all of those things. And I frequently, every time I meet girls, I give them my card. I say, listen, you may not want to talk to me now, but say, hang on my number, put it in your phone. Maybe if there's ever time you do want to talk to me, or you do want to talk to someone, you can call me. Just call me or text me, and we can get you the help you need. And it's just that constant being there, so that when they are ready, and I've gotten those, plenty of times I've gotten those calls, and sometimes it's years later, but you got the call, and when they're ready, then you can help them. We help them hook up with community services. Again, the department doesn't specifically provide any of those services, but we work with community providers and different programs that are out there to provide those services to the families, whether we need to get them into a safe house, whether they need to have counseling, whether they need to have emergency medical care, all of those things. We have the resources to hook them up with what's available in their community and what's going to fit best for them and for their household. And I guess the main thing, I guess, to take away is our kids are smart. They're very smart. Most of us, we didn't grow up in the internet age. We didn't grow up in the cell phone age, and our kids have. And they know what's out there. They know how to post it. They know how to exchange money electronically. They know how to do all of those things. So the more that we know and that we can be monitoring and watching our kids and looking for those things. If your child's coming home with things like a cell phone or their hair done or new clothes and you didn't provide that for them, well, that's a problem. That's something you need to find out. How did you get that? How did you obtain that? Because I didn't buy it for you. So where are they getting those things? And those should be the things that we're looking for. And just to remember that it's out there and it's everywhere. It's in, like our previous speaker said, it's in every community. It is in the low economics all the way into the rich neighborhoods. It's across the board, and we see it with everybody. And the victims are everywhere. So the biggest takeaway I would say is, if you see something, say something. And even if you're not sure, but something hits you as you feel like, I don't know if that's right, or that could be something, always err on the side of saying something. Make the call the hotline, make the call, and just, if you see something, say something. That's always best practice.
Thank you, Melissa. Appreciate it. It's definitely, we need to educate the public more responsibly. We need to get the word out, and that's what we're hoping today with our program on human trafficking. It's all around us with the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. We will resume to our normal format, which is let the panelists speak through and then open it up for Q&A. But we are reaching the point where I think Nathan is going to be departing, and I think there was one chat question. Did you see that, Nathan? Are you able to respond to that?
The question about, I think I saw it.
Yeah, I think it was really about a local question about why is it there's no facilities for males in this area, I believe.
I didn't see that, and I think it's a couple of reasons. It's the lack of awareness. The lack of awareness, the lack of research has stymied funding. I think that's a big part of it, is that there's just, it's for so long it's been, it hasn't been part of the conversation. So recently we're starting to collect data. We're starting to see momentum within the community. So we hope to see that change.
And what we can do is leave that question for the rest of the panelists as well towards the end of the speaking format. So again, thank you, Nathan. If you have to sign off, we greatly appreciate it. Nathan's contact information is in the chat, and we will open the chat rooms up a little bit later. If there's more questions for Nathan, we'll make sure that he receives them. So with that said, I'd like to move to our third panelist tonight, and that is, she comes to us from Devereaux, Florida, Andrina Harriman, who she provides clinical leadership in the Delta program for survivors of sexual exploitation. She supports the most vulnerable of our communities, the LGBT community and and those with autism spectrum disorders. She advocates for education about the impact of adverse childhood experiences and for the developing of resiliency. So with that said, the floor is yours, Adrina.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you everyone for your time this evening. I'm really happy to be here and able to share some information with you. And I want to just reiterate a lot of the same things that Melissa and Nathan already reiterated. This happens everywhere in every community. It can look different for each individual. And so it's really important to work on having an open dialogue and communication with the children and youth in our lives. So often, Nathan mentioned this as well, they're afraid. They're afraid of being rejected. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of being punished. And sometimes that stops them from sharing if something uncomfortable is happening for them, or if somebody's approaching them in a weird way, or asking them to do things that they might not otherwise want to do or even think about doing. And so really being able to proactively share, ask questions, be curious about what's happening in the lives of the youth that we encounter can really help to protect them a little bit better and have them know that there's a avenue that they can go to if there's a question or a concern. As Melissa mentioned, in the last year and a half, we have seen a significant increase in commercial sexual exploitation happening online for individuals. Just the nature of the pandemic, kids were more online, and perpetrators know where to go. And so they too have gone online. And there's a lot of things that kids don't think about that they do online that can leave them open to being vulnerable. They can take a picture at school or at home and not realize that there's a geolocation tab on that photo, and somebody can know their exact location. It might have a mascot or a school name involved in it, and so they may get that additional information and be able to use that to build familiarity for kids. And so being able to talk to kids about who they're talking to and who they go private with online, because sometimes, a lot of times, whether it's in video games or on TV or on social media, they will really have people who will take an interest. You know, they might say they're sad or have a bad day, and somebody will take that an opportunity to tell them they're beautiful or they're cute, or, you know, they've got such a great smile. Why should they have a problem? And all of those things will feel really good to a child. It doesn't matter their gender. It doesn't matter their sexual orientation. And it can help lower their guard. And so they're able to do more and more things that support that relationship and that connection to continue to get that trust and affection. And so if we're also building that trust and affection and curiosity and interest with individuals, that's really important, so that we know who they're talking to. Do they know them in real life? Knowing them in real life doesn't always mean that they're a safe person, because we can have friends or close people in our lives who can also cause harm and who can groom and traffic the children that we serve. And so being able to also really trust and listen to the kids that we're working with about if something doesn't feel right, or if they're spending a lot of time with somebody, if their sleeping habits have changed, if they're kind of always on their phone or have to get back to somebody and they can't leave a message unread. Those may be it might just be teenage behavior, but it's a good opportunity to have a conversation about healthy boundaries and get more information. You know, there's a lot of youth that are doing online images or videos, either for in their perception, their own empowerment and getting income, and they don't see the dangers of it and the risks and where it goes, or because somebody's asking them to do it and pressuring them in some way. There's also plenty of opportunities for kids in the community to get led astray, or to be manipulated or coerced, or to engage in sex acts in the community as well. And so we want to be aware of those things, and we want to be able to talk to them about where they're going and what they're doing and who they're hanging out with. If we see changes in their personality, if we see that there's increased withdrawal, like social withdrawal and isolation, or using substances, or being more irritable, or change in their weight, or change in their sleep, all of these things can be indicators, not necessarily conclusive indicators, but altogether can be things that can be warning signs that the child needs some support and help, and that trafficking and exploitation might be happening. At Devereaux, we have the Delta program, and in the Delta program, we have made an active choice to have our program be a treatment track that kind of spans across all of the different programs that Delta has. And so we can offer services that are residential in nature, whether it's at our Viera campus or at our SIP in Orlando. And we also have safe homes for children who are in the foster care system and who've been exploited. And they are trained foster parents who know how to address and support individuals who've been exploited. And then I run the outpatient program as well. And in the outpatient program, we're able to provide telehealth therapy to anyone across Florida and in-person therapy in the Orlando area. And so we've really been able to expand our ability to support individuals and their families who need help and counseling, and to help build their awareness of what's been going on. We also provide education for parents. I'll do one-on-one education or group education if needed for parents to talk about what HT looks like, what human trafficking looks like, what some of the trauma impacts are to kind of the changes of behavior, and how to turn those things into that restoration that Nathan was talking about before, that resiliency and that ability to see the possibility in their life. Because a lot of times when individuals start to realize that they've been exploited, their confidence and self-esteem go down. They tend to think that the world is only that world of exploitation, and that that's all that is available to them. And so with the loving people in their lives, there can be changes made to that. And with therapy as well. I also will do individual and group support and education around internet safety for families. And that can also be helpful just so that they can start to open a dialogue. We also do that for children too, youth who might be interested in learning and being able to support the other youth in their life, because it may not be happening to them, but if youth are also aware, they can spot the warning signs with their friends too. And that can be really helpful to prevent things from going to a more extreme end. I think sometimes kids will see videos or pictures of the people, other youth online, and maybe they'll share it, or maybe they'll laugh about it, or maybe a rumor will start about another kid. Those are all other places where there's warning signs that exploitation's happening. And if kids know about that, they can change their behavior too. They can be more compassionate and less judgmental about those situations. They might also be able to ask for help for their friend rather than thinking it's no big deal or thinking that there's no place for them to go. when we talk about online exploitation, when I think about kids and youth who happen to have a diagnosis of autism, they particularly will gravitate to the internet as a safe space to build their confidence, to build friends, to get connection. And this puts them at a uniquely vulnerable situation because they don't always know the social cues. They don't always know that something might be not appropriate. And they really want to build that friendship, that connection, that feeling of normalcy. And so they will do a lot to get that support and care and affection. Not that other kids won't, they certainly will. But I think that it's important that we note that autistic children tend to also be at risk for trafficking. We don't speak about it as often as we should. And so I want to just note that that is something that we have seen, that we experience, and that we really want to make sure that people are aware of. I think parents get scared. Adults get scared that these things could happen to their kids. And sometimes we will want to control everything or tell them what to do rather than asking them questions. And sometimes that will shut them down and get them to hide more things rather than ask. And so it can be really helpful if you can reach out to people for support. You can always reach out to me. And I'm going to put my email as well in the chat. I am sure that Melissa also would want to be available, and the hotline is always a good place to go. But we really want to be able to give you all resources. We want us to be proactive in our communities. It's easy to say it doesn't happen in my neighborhood. I don't want it because we don't want it in our neighborhood. It's painful to think that individuals that we care about could be being hurt. And if we're able to start the conversations early, and I know it can sometimes be hard to talk about sex, and kids might not always want to talk about sex, but they're going to go somewhere else to talk about it. And so if we can get comfortable and we can make it not feel uncomfortable, we're going to have better outcomes.
2 minutes, Andrea.
Are you pretty much wrapped up there, Will? We'll have time for questions and answers, and I'm sure we'll have some for you here in a minute as well. Andrina, as far as Devereaux, is it as far as the corporation, is it local? Is it Florida based? Or can you just tell us a little bit about your company?
Devereaux is a national organization. Helena Devereaux started the Devereaux Foundation in the early 1900s and was a pretty unique woman who really saw the potential of everybody. And she really worked to allow them to see their potential as well. And so our home offices are based in Pennsylvania, and we're in 11 or 12 states. And in Florida, we're in many communities doing many different things. So in South Florida, I believe we have a CBC. In Central Florida, we have a number of different programs and organizations. We have outpatient programs. We have the SIP. We have the Vieira campus and the Space Coast. We have foster families all over the state. And we have wraparound programs and programs for individual that support individuals with justice, DJJ, and mental health issues in their lives to try to help them recover and thrive and get out of law enforcement issues earlier in their lives, so that that's maybe a blip on their radar rather than a longer term concern. And really building and fostering supports around the needs of the families and helping both the whole unit. We try to be pretty holistic in our approach and network and develop resources in the community to really meet the needs of the people we're serving.
Well, thank you for all you do in your company. And we will, also for you, Melissa, we will, before we move to our third panelist, I just wanted to welcome those that may be joining us a little bit late. This is the Space Coast Progressive Alliance First Thursday program for human trafficking. It's all around us. And we have a great group here tonight discussing various components of law enforcement, social work, mental health, and community education. We will have an opportunity after our fourth speaker, Agent Lee, to open it up, and we'll open the chat room up and allow for also for folks to raise their hand. Either we'll try to get you on the screen or do it electronically through your own devices. I'm not even going to try to explain that because everybody has different devices, but there is a raise the hand option under reactions, I believe. But with that said, I do want to make sure that the folks also know that we are broadcasting through the Facebook Live, and that if you have questions, you can post them through the Facebook, and we have somebody monitoring that. I believe DP is monitoring that, and he will bring that into the questions and answer portion of the program tonight. Okay, DP, am I correct with that?
You got it. If you have a question and you're watching on Facebook, just kindly submit that question into the chat section, and I will put it up on the screen and read it aloud for the members in the Zoom.
Great. Thank you, DP. Well, our next panelist comes to us from the Brevard Sheriff's Department, and he was gracious enough to sit in for Sergeant Stoll, who was supposed to be here tonight, but he had an emergency as well. So I'm very honored to introduce Agent Lee from the Special Victims Unit of the Brevard Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you to all the panelists. You guys really did a great job and effectively wrapped up what exactly human trafficking is. And the title of the conference, or the topic of conversation itself, is human trafficking. It's all around us, and it really is. It speaks volumes. It may not seem prevalent to everyone because it's not in their lives, but it's happening in our backyards. This might seem redundant because I'm the fourth panelist who's talking about this. I don't want to say redundant, repetitive, if you will, but I'd like to give you guys a law enforcement standpoint, law enforcement point of view as far as human trafficking. To start, I want to read you guys the statute in itself. As being a law enforcement officer, that's what we focus on. It is 77.06 Florida statutes, subsection 2D. It's the transporting, soliciting, recruiting, harboring, providing, enticing, maintaining, or obtaining another for a purpose of exploitation. And that's usually through the use of fraud, force, or coercion. Now, that seems like a lot because it is. It pretty much covers a broad perspective of what human trafficking is. Before I forget, I do work with Melissa and Adrina a lot, with Devro and DCF. We work hand in hand in cases, especially for human trafficking. Here in the Special Victims Unit, we work child abuse cases, domestic violence cases, sex crimes, and human trafficking. So they brought up a good point about the online transition of society. We would usually normally think of human trafficking as people being in cages and in chains, but it's transitioned more now to being online with children and exploitation. I have several cases that I work with children, juveniles, really sending pictures and photos of themselves. And these predators are just hiding behind a screen, and it makes it so easy for them to be more brave and bold to try and talk to these children because, like I said, they're hiding behind a screen. So they have methods of being able to pay for photos or videos of whatever they would want from children who are being exploited, such as Cash App, Venmo, and even Facebook now has an option where you can send money through the Facebook account itself. So the more society develops and implements technology, it's great, it helps us, but it also poses that risk for us and for children. One thing that was mentioned was the taking selfies and having the geotag. That is a huge thing, is a geotag. People don't realize that taking a photo can actually put you in a location if someone knows what they're looking for. But more to that is if you take a picture and say this had the school photo behind me, then you would know exactly where I am. And children don't think about that when they take pictures. They just take the picture of themselves. But to add to that, parents actually have to be careful with what they post online as well, because they'll take a picture of their kid, and usually it's because they're proud of their kid, which is fine. They'll take a picture of their kid playing baseball, but the baseball will have the team and the school. So now, not only does it give predators information as to where they're going, now they know their schedule as well. And decals are huge, car decals. So it's a cute, fun way to express some sort of profile for your family, but some people put their mom, dad, and the two children, the dogs, in that nice little decal picture that you have, but it's giving them more information as to how many people are in your family, and say other decals like, my son is a honor student at such and such. That gives them information as well as to what school they go to. And they can use that information to trick these children into coming with them, or so on and so forth. But I digress. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget that, because that was a great topic that was brought up. So in a law enforcement standpoint, we are trained to spot these signs, and these signs aren't very easy to spot. So we go to calls for services, and we are trained to look at these types of signs when we respond to residences. Now, it's not going to be the clear-cut, a cage right there and a chain wall, but it could be little things like, say, a door that's what you enter through and there's a lock outside of it. Why would there be a lock outside of it? That's something you got to think about. Along with the cameras inside the house. Now, you might not think that that's anything crazy, that people use it for security, but you have to look at the totality of circumstances is what we use. That's a term we use. But you really have to look at the big picture in order to get exactly what's going on. Now, when it comes to people, these are signs that we look at for, say, children or women when we respond to domestic violence calls or suspicious people calls. Usually if we interview them and they avoid eye contact, or they lack any sort of identification or any money, sometimes they have tattoos or some sort of brand saying daddy or boyfriend or anything like that. There's unexplained bruises, and a huge red flag for us is if they're fearful towards us. There's usually some sort of reason for that. Now, there's a lot who are fearful towards us, unfortunately, but like I said, it's a big picture that we're looking at if they are changing their stories or telling a lie. And the main thing is when they look at their abuser before they speak, they are sort of looking at them for permission, if you will, to even speak or do anything. That's a huge red flag that we look at. And once we have everything in total, that's when we actually take action. So what we're trained to do is we make sure there's a sense of safety, make sure they feel safe. We don't talk to them in front of their abusers, because they are more likely to not talk and to lie if they don't feel like they can freely speak. And once we talk to them, we try to build a rapport. Obviously, this is a very delicate matter. They're not going to want to talk, because not only do they think that we're out to get them, they also think, well, this is all I know. This is how I'm going to survive. So I'm going to stick with them. And that also goes in part with domestic violence as well. But I'd like to add that because it plays a part in human trafficking. Now, after that, that's when we would take action and try to get resources out there to see what we can do. But it also really boils down to them being able to help us out so that we can help them. Now, here in Brevard County Sheriff's Office, we work human trafficking cases. We have different units that all kind of come together and work as a team to fight this global pandemic, which is a great word for it. So the main unit that works towards human trafficking is the Special Victims Unit, which is what I'm a part of. We also have the Special Investigations Unit, which is our drug unit, but it also encompasses gambling and prostitution, which prostitution is something that people don't look at, but it plays a part in human trafficking as well. Because as Nathan was talking about the fear of withdrawal, the drug dependency, yes, they could be prostituting, but it could be due in part to the substance dependency that they have. So, and with that being said, the state attorney's office and we all as a whole, the majority of us, we try not to double victimize, if you will, prostitutes, because if it were a case of human trafficking, they could technically be charged for prostitution, but we won't do that because that's not the reason. They are prostituting due in fact to the human trafficking. So we wouldn't victimize them again by charging them for that aforementioned crime. But basically we get these tips usually through crime line tips, cyber tips, and we follow them up and we work with task force with the federal agencies such as FBI, Homeland Security, and Customs and Border Patrol. But we all, in total, try to work towards fighting this pandemic. But I also think it's important for people to be able to realize these signs, especially people in healthcare, people in tourism and hospitality. That's the main type of people that's going to see it, but also just citizens in general. If you see something, say something. Like Melissa said, that's the greatest thing that we can have as law enforcement officers and professionals, because that's where we can start with something. We can't work an investigation without people reporting it to us.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Agent Lee. What I'm going to do now is, hopefully if I did that correctly, I opened the chat room to allow everyone to be able to chat amongst yourself as well as have questions for the panelists. What we'll ask you to do for the panelists is to raise your hand if possible and go, and then we'll take you off of mute while you can ask your question, and then we'll go from there. So any questions? Yes, DP.
I've got two general questions from the same person, Marcus Hochman, on Facebook here. I'll put the first one up and read it off. It is, has there been any legislation or discussion at the state level to educate children in schools about sex trafficking awareness? And give me a moment here to put up the second question, and I'll read it off and let you guys answer them both at once. And the second question is, with the recent Facebook whistleblower in DC this week, does Facebook have a legal and ethical responsibility to look for sex trafficking, especially since Facebook could possibly detect the algorithm pattern of sexual traffickers and predators?
Thank you, DP. Do we have Agent Lee? You look like you were smiling there, like you had an answer for us. You want to take a shot?
Yes, it's mostly for the second question. I highly agree with that. With Facebook and any social media account, this is prevalent on all social media, especially TikTok is one thing. It's easy enough for Facebook for you to post something, but TikTok, there's so many people on it that you don't even have the resources to track through that. But yes, with Facebook, with whole whistleblowing incident, I think they do have the ethical responsibility to keep track of not only sex trafficking, they also have the responsibility to report anything, really, especially if it goes in part to the danger of others. If a threat was made on Facebook, it really should be reported. So I believe that it should kind of carry over to any sort of sex trafficking as well, because you could go to Facebook jail all you want, but that's not going to really make a difference. It really is a huge help to us as law enforcement if social media organizations are helping us out, because that's where the main platform is and the main venue is of sexual predators to reach out to these kids and to these victims.
Thank you, Agent. Anything to add, Adrina or Melissa?
Not so much on that question, but the first half of the question about the education piece and in schools. Ironically, I just took a training on this past week, and they talked a lot about this education piece, and it's very minimal in schools right now. And what they do have requires parental permission for the kids to even be exposed to any type of human trafficking training. And again, with that parental permission, requiring it is very difficult because a lot of parents have the mentality of locked rooms, chains, girls being smuggled in. They don't understand what human trafficking is, so they don't feel there's a need for their child to learn about it.
Thank you, Melissa. Anything to add on that, Adrina?
I think that I would agree with both of the panelists that have already spoken. There are a lot of times that Instagram or Facebook, which Facebook owns both of them, can be utilized to influence or to groom individuals for trafficking. And so it should be looking for that, and it should be able to protect youth, to even monitor how certain individuals might be utilizing the program, and have them be kind of kicked out for terms of service or something along those lines, or even be reporting to the cyber tip line or something like that, which anybody can report to the cyber tip line, and it will connect to local law enforcement as well. But the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids runs the cyber tip line, and you can, if you know of or have a concern of somebody who is a predator or doing something online, that is an avenue that we all have that we can utilize, as well as your local law enforcement and DCF.
Great, thank you. Before we get to the two questions with the hands up, there was an earlier question from Megan Slack on the chat room that said that I used to work in a safe house location for female survivors of human trafficking, ages 14 to 17. I have always wondered why there are not locations like that here in Florida for males. It's also interesting that not many locations except those of LGBTQ. That location was one of the first to accept a transgender female who has been a victim of human trafficking. Do any of the panelists want to respond to that question or comment?
I can say for us, that's a problem that we see widespread when we need safe houses, and they're right. There's not a lot out there. I believe at last count, there were 6, I believe, that took males. Not very many more that take females, and the spots are very, very limited. So there's not a lot of availability out there. And unfortunately, when it comes to the LGBTQ community, it's difficult to have those crossovers, because if they're identifying as a different gender, to put them in a safe house with others that are biologically that gender raises a lot of risk and liability. So not many people are willing to take that on. And that's why we don't see a lot of those kind of crossover ones.
Thank you, Melissa. I'll, before I ask the question of Claudette, I'll lean over here to Bonnie, who's got her hand up. Bonnie?
Okay, am I unmuted? Yes. One question, I'm a grandmother. Of course, I post pictures of my grandchildren online. If I don't have locations, is there still some risk in doing that? This is on Facebook.
I think that there's probably always some risk to something, right? But really knowing what your privacy settings are, if you share your pictures and they can only be seen by your friends, and you don't have a lot of friends that are unknown to you, that lowers the risk of putting kids on Facebook. Granted, even in those situations, if you have somebody, anybody can copy your picture and then share it somewhere else. And so that can be a risk. And, you know, again, like Agent Lee said, if you're kind of showing them at their high school in their high school uniform, they're then going to probably be, somebody could potentially see that and be like, oh, this is somebody I could kind of follow along. Maybe if you tag the grandchildren with the picture, then they could, and they could then start messaging the child and start grooming them and be like, oh, I went to your baseball game and you were really great. And lower their guard, and they're like, oh, or, you know, I'm friends with this other kid that's on your baseball team, and, you know, all of those things. And then that's kind of how the guard gets lowered, so that then they get a little bit more complacent and start sharing a little bit more and are a little more familiar with somebody online.
Thank you, because I'm truly clueless about this. That is so eye-opening to me. I did also want to ask you, is there an effort to educate the schools, the parents, not the parents that are complicit, but the other parents, to know what the things you told us about what to watch for?
I know that I provide different trainings for parents, and I've worked with different local organizations to offer those to smaller groups of parents or larger groups to parents. Usually, like really big groups, there's less dialogue, but there's also information being shared. And I've also shared it one-on-one with parents who've been referred when their kids are referred to us. I try to offer to do some psychoeducation, as we call it, really just understanding of what commercial sexual exploitation looks like, how it happens, what to kind of look for, and some of the internet safety points that I have also made.
How about, does the sheriff go into the schools? And I'm thinking about really widespread education. It seems like it's so important.
So our SROs, the school resource officers, are usually trained on educating not only the children, but the parents as well, especially when it comes to social media. Unfortunately, social media has just gone on the rise. I know it's been developing, but it's becoming more and more prevalent with children now having smartphones and having access to them. So we are harping more on and focusing more on the social media and online activity training. What's also good about Facebook, which kind of sounds the opposite of what I'm saying, is the ease of sharing it also helps you share information. So there's usually posts out there that people will share that gives you information. So I actually saw that on a post, which I thought was great, but they put it kind of side by side, one where it was a decal which had all the information, and the other where they kind of scratched off what kind of information you should redact. So you still post what you wanted to post, but you just minimize the risk. So if you see any sort of information like that, the best way to train people when it comes down to it is to share it, because it's just the easiest way. People are scrolling, and once they see that, they just realize, and it's just the easiest way to spread the information.
Great. Thank you, Agent Lee. I'm sorry, go ahead, Melissa.
No, I was just going to say, and as far as the department's response, we're probably the most actively going into neighborhoods and homes and meeting parents in the homes of a lot of these at-risk kids and youth. So even when I'm out on a case that has nothing to do with human trafficking, that's still something we're educating parents on. We're letting them know that it's out there, and it's worked its way into just that general information that we're providing for the parents and to families as we go out into their homes.
Excellent. Thank you, Melissa. I have a quick question here on chat, and then I'll go to Kim. The question on chat is from Claudette, and she asked, are you able to provide any statistics for either Brevard County or the state that reveals how widespread this problem really is? Does anybody want to take a stab at that?
I can't really speak to any specific statistics for that, but what I can say in general for Brevard County, probably 5 years ago, I would not have really had much understanding or knowledge of human trafficking. It was something that we just started hearing about, I would say, within the last 5 years, and now 5 years later, I would say at any given time, close to half my caseload is human trafficking cases. So we definitely are seeing a rise in it being reported here in Florida, especially Brevard County.
I also don't have any specific statistics, just like Melissa, but the top 3 states, as mentioned by the previous panelists, was California, Texas, and Florida. It could be due in part to how dense the population is, but really I believe it boils down to the type of places they are. I mean, here in Florida, the most highly reported human trafficking instances, the cities, if you will, are Orlando, Tampa, and Miami. And that's mainly because of tourism, nightlife, and just how active that place is. The more crowded the locations are, the more likely it is for human trafficking, because people are still preying on these crowded places. So when it boils down to any large event, such as like Super Bowls or concerts, usually local agencies will work with federal agencies to make a task force. And you might not even notice it, but we are actually looking during those events to see if you can spot any signs of people trying to prey on other people who could be in a state of intoxication, or they're just not paying attention because they're having a good time. So that's something we look at as well, but it is prevalent in all 50 states, everywhere in the world, but those 3 are the top 3 for that reason.
Okay, thank you, Andrina.
I know that I look at the APAGA report, and in the APAGA report from 2020, it indicated that there were over 3,000 cases of commercial sexual exploitation reported to DCF in the year of 2019. And 378 of those were verified. And it really takes a lot and I'm not a DCF investigator, and I'm not a law enforcement officer, but from my perspective, it really takes a lot for a case to be verified. There can be a lot of indicators and a lot of things that check the boxes that make you go, this is happening, and still not really be able to get a verified case. So, and that's the number that were reported, not the number of situations that were out there and happening. In that time, the 4 counties that had the highest prevalence were Broward, Miami-Dade, Duval, and Orange. And so that's just a little bit from that report.
Excellent. Thank you, Adrina. We do have people patiently waiting with their hand up. I'd like to turn the question over to Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for having me ask a question, and thank you to the panelists. You guys are great. And wanted to touch on, thank you, Melissa, for touching on the online, and actually all of you touched on what to watch out for the online kids with the games and the apps. my question for you, I have two questions, one for you and one for the Agent Lee. But for you, how often do you see the online engagements with these kids turning into in-person, where they're developing those relationships? I ask because I have a couple of folks that I've worked with that has happened with here in Brevard, wanting to get a greater scope, though, of what you have seen.
For me personally, not as often. We see a lot of the online, again, with the exchange of the photos, those kind of things. And as we're talking to kids, that's some of the questions that we ask them, about what apps they're on, and are they meeting people on these apps? And are they, then after talking to them, do you go out and meet them? Do you hang out at McDonald's or meet at the mall or these kind of things? And more often than not, no, they're not having physical contact. It's all occurring across the internet. And most times, even when we can get names, which is unusual, we'll get a screen name or a first name or some version of a name. But they're keeping all of that very anonymous, which then makes them difficult to track and difficult to catch as well. I'm sure the agent can speak a little bit more on that, but we see that a lot too. I get a lot of first names and just not enough. If they don't give up, they know how to protect their information and they're very good at doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Agent Lee, you had said that you're not charging the quote unquote prostitutions with prostitution if you can identify that they are victims of human trafficking, and that's fantastic. That's one of our battle cries with the folks that I work with. How often, is that a normal procedure that you guys are gonna really try to evaluate the situation and not arrest and actually charge the potential victim with prostitution? Because as I'm an NGO here in Brevard, and I work with expungements of criminal records and clearing them so survivors can get a good head start when they get back out of the life. So hearing that is fabulous. Is that something that, I don't know if that was a clear question or not.
Yes,
is that something
absolutely.
that you see often? That's part of the protocol?
Yes,
Can I just jump in real quick what an NGO is for the audience?
Oh, sorry, yes. It's a non-governmental agency or NGO, sorry, non-government organization, not agency, organization. Sorry, I had to trip myself up there for a second. I'm a nonprofit here in Brevard, so apologize for the acronym.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Sorry about that, Agent. Go ahead.
That's all right. Yes, it's something we definitely try to implement. Here on our end, we usually work the sex crimes aspect of it. So when it comes to us, it's more often than not the victims reporting to us that they were sexually abused or sexually battered. So it will come out that they'll disclose that they were essentially selling themselves due to prostitution. And then we take into account their story and how it pretty much progresses. We try to take the big picture. I can't speak for actual prostitution arrests on the side of the road, any stings of that sort, because that's kind of independent to our own. But once we get reports from the prostitution victims themselves, we try to implement and we try to investigate what exactly they're disclosing and where they're coming from, such as if they're in some sort of compound and what exactly led them to selling their bodies and what are they getting it in exchange for and who are they reporting to. That's a big thing, is if they have to report to someone, that's by definition going into the human trafficking realm. So we definitely switch gears when it comes to that, because prostitution is still a crime, but once it gets to that checklist where we see that it's kind of contributing to another crime, which is human trafficking, that's when we implement that type of approach.
Excellent. Thank you, Kim and Agent Lee. The next question is going to come from Joyce. Joyce?
I think Agent Lee was just touching on what I was wondering about, and that's the line where legal activities cross into illegal activities. And I think you sort of addressed that. So I'm wondering, different question. Where I live, there are 2 gentlemen clubs. What's the scoop with these things? What role do you play in that? I mean, not you personally, but how does that get involved with law enforcement?
So it all depends on what kind of tips or reports we get from that sort of situation. We get those a lot, actually. We get them in forms of crime line tips, which are completely anonymous. And if we do get a tip, we have to follow it through as best as we can. We also have to make it a delicate approach because the tips themselves we cannot use for probable cause to conduct any sort of push on the investigation, like a warrant or whatnot. But that just gives us an idea to how to get creative on how to approach the investigation, whether it be undercover or whether it be waiting outside and just trying to scope the place out, if you will. But it usually comes in the route of crime line tips or any sort of anonymous calls. But those kinds of reports we can't use essentially to initiate any type of action. So we would have to slowly build a case on that. But those tips are what get us started in the first place. So that's basically how we.
Great question, Joyce. That's an interesting question. And anything to add to that, Andrina or Melissa, on gentlemen clubs? And
well, same thing. We get those same tips through the abuse hotline as well. It's when there's concern that they're underage girls, and those would again be those sex acts where their dancing is considered a sex act. So we get those into the department as well. When we get those reports in, again, we're reaching out to law enforcement, and it's something we're working jointly with them.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, well, our next question is coming from Bill McKay. Bill?
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It's been really educational. My question actually is about the public schools and the education that you're trying to do there. Has the Parental Bill of Rights caused any extra hoops to jump through or problems with being able to bring this into the public school system to be able to educate not just the children, but the teachers and parents as well? How's that affected that, if at all?
Would someone like to try to answer Bill's question?
Well, I can just say just that little bit that I did learn this, this week to kind of just touch on again. It is through parental permission. It's not something that's just out there in the schools that you may, as I go into schools, I may see a random poster here and there that, touching on it, but it's not something that's regularly being taught to the kids. And if it is, it requires, at this point, it requires parental permission.
Excellent. Anything else on that? DP, any questions out there on Facebook?
Nope, no questions on Facebook.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We're going to ask the panelists now for some closing remarks. If you can just take a minute or two, kind of reflect on our conversations and bring home the message you want to deliver. And we can go randomly to whichever one wants to go first. Okay.
Learn a lot from this. All the other panelists give me a lot of information that I can use myself. I hope I help. I'm also learning. I'm still learning, and I'm sure I will keep on learning as this type of crime keeps developing. It's only going to get more sophisticated as technology progresses, but just be mindful of your children and what you post online. Just be careful of that. And as it was touched on, be mindful of the signs that you see, any difference in behaviors of children. Are they on their phone a lot? Are they messaging people? Are they any sort of drastic change of behavior could be a huge thing. And even just as simple as sending pictures could gravitate towards meeting somebody, and they could even use that information that they have posted online to build that rapport. We always talk about building rapport, but they know that as well. The predators know that as well, and they will build rapport, and that's how they target the children. Now, as far as adult human trafficking, that's more so towards making sure you look at the signs for people as well in person. It's not always all online, it's also in person. So make sure you look at any type of behavior where it can be male or female, someone who's being aggressive to someone, and any type of bad flags, bad signals that you get from this person. If you feel like that this is a situation for human trafficking, just please report it so that we can actually have something to go after once it all is said and done.
Thank you very much, Agent Lee. Melissa?
What I'd like to just leave you with is have those conversations with your kids. Have the conversations know who their friends are, know what they're doing online. Just be aware of what they're saying and where they're going and who they're talking to. Your kids have plenty of friends. They don't need another friend. They need a parent. They need somebody that's going to be there to set boundaries and set the rules and just be involved, because it's out there and it's everywhere. And at the end of the day, the best thing I can leave you with is if you see something, say something. Get somebody involved.
Excellent. Thank you. Andrina?
Yes, I would like to reiterate what Melissa said. Open the lines of communication. If you feel uncomfortable talking about something, practice talking about it to somebody else. Because being able to have your kids know that you can talk about something, that you're not gonna like wilt or run to the hills if they bring up something that is overwhelming or scary, is gonna help them. I know there was something I saw in social media at one point in time that I thought was a really lovely idea. It was a father had given each of his children a golden ticket. And it was a little piece of paper, and on it, it's just said, "I can tell you anything." And he gave it to each of them, and he said, "I don't care what it is. It could be a horrible, bad thing. I want you to hand me this ticket, and it's going to be the moment that I know that I'm just here to listen and support you. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to get punished. I just want to be able to talk to you and help you and support you." And, I think that if we're able to kind of have something like that golden ticket for the kids that we care about in our life, it will also serve as a reminder to us. When I was in high school, I was a part of SAD, Students Against Drunk Driving, right? And we had a contract pledge that we had to sign with our parents. And our parents basically were like, "Yeah, I can call you at 2 a.m. I may have missed curfew. You're not going to yell at me until maybe the next day, but you're going to come home, or you're going to come and pick me up wherever I am and tell me that I'm safe and okay and that you have my back." I think being able to have more of those messages with our kids and more of those physical reminders of like, "Hey, this is that moment that you told me I could come to you," serves and helps both of us. And so being able to have those conversations with your kids, have those conversations with other friends' kids, and your community members and your friends, so that they also are able to have that safe space to talk openly about things that are maybe going on.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Andrina and Agent Lee and Melissa for helping us tonight and educating us. But before we really wrap up, we do have one more question I'm going to sneak in here from our past chair of our education Committee. Paul, do you have a question for us?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't ask this earlier, but as you've all said, human trafficking is really, really big business. Is the IRS involved in going after these people? Because we know that they have assets and income that is very unreported. And how would somebody contact the IRS to report them?
To my knowledge, yes, the IRS is involved as well. Usually all federal agencies work together to make task forces towards human trafficking, and IRS, being the money, would be involved as well, because as everyone knows, for any type of crime, following the money usually leads to exactly where you want. The problem is that they usually are, the more developed organizations usually know exactly how they can be subtle and hide from the IRS. So that's the problem that they face. So if there's any reports, they take those as well. They'll investigate it the way they do. So there's really no harm in making any type of tip if it's something that you think is concerning. That's essentially all I know about the IRS and IRS's involvement with human trafficking.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Agent Lee. Well, I did take everybody, or asked everybody, to come off of mute for purposes of doing a round of applause for this group. Just want to say,
absolutely wonderful, great information.
So much. And I do want to remind that the next program will be scheduled for November 4th. And the title of it is Shouting from the Wall, Art and Politics. And I'm sorry, we have Bonnie, who is the head of that program. Bonnie, did I get that wrong?
No, that was a former title. It has been changed.
Okay.
The title is Beyond the Pretty Picture, When Art is Political. And this is going to be a little break from the intensity of the kind of programs we've had. But please, it's going to be so interesting, and get your arty friends to come and join us. There'll be a lot of visuals to see. You'll get some history on political art. We have an editorial cartoonist. We have a Native American filmmaker. I promise it'll be a very interesting time. That's the first Thursday of November.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate that. I do want to thank again the panelists, Agent Lee with the Brevard Sheriff's Department, Adriana Harriman with Devereaux, Florida, and Melissa Krieger with Children's and Family Services. Thank you all so much for.
And Nathan Earl. I know he left early.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Right.
Absolutely.
And all of those folks that helped to get this program up and running, please put the information in the chat room. We will stay live for a few more minutes to do a critique with the APC team. So for that, I'm going to pretty much say if there's no more questions, we're going to pretty much close the evening.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Thank you. Thank you all for.
Thank you.
Thank you
All right.
for having us.
Be safe. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're going to stop the recording on Facebook.